Well, good morning from Cottage Farmstead. If we haven't met before, I'm Rebecca. And if this is your first time at our channel, I'll catch you up. Farmer Nathan and I are expecting our first child in about 7 to 10 weeks. So I have been busy making double batches of a lot of our favorite foods in the kitchen, so I have a lot of stuff in the freezer so that I don't have to cook for the first month. Today I'm in the kitchen actually making one of our favorite breakfast recipes that we make probably a couple times a month, and that is gluten-free pancakes. I haven't filmed it before on this channel as I'm usually making it really early in the morning on a Sunday when it's dark and we're trying to get out the door to go to church. So today, since I'm actually making a larger batch and I'm doing it in the daylight hours, I figured I'd film it and show you our favorite pancake recipe. So the original recipe for these pancakes is from the King Arthur Flour website. It's their self-rising, light and fluffy pancakes, and it is a delicious recipe. I discovered this recipe when I first moved out on my own. I wasn't eating gluten-free at the time, and I didn't have pancake mix in the house, so I was just Googling recipes that I could make with ingredients that I had on hand. And turns out that I love this more than any pancake mix that I've ever tried. When I had to start eating gluten-free, I started doing some trial and error to find a way to turn this into a gluten-free recipe that was just as delicious. So we found that if we use 50% a cup for cup or measure for measure flour with 50% whole buckwheat flour, it turns out very, very good. I actually prefer it over the gluten version, to be honest, because the buckwheat gives it a nice light, nutty flavor that is really, really good. So today I'm actually making a triple batch, so I'm going to be making a lot of this. So I went ahead and milled my buckwheat just a minute ago to have that prepped and ready to go. So I'm going to start putting all the ingredients together, and I will walk us through converting this delicious recipe into gluten-free. And I will link below to the original recipe as well as a blog post on our website that talks about my gluten-free modifications for this delicious recipe. So the original recipe called for self-rising flour, and that's not something I have on hand when I'm baking gluten-free, but it's super simple to make in your kitchen. You just need some baking powder and some salt, and you can convert any flour into self-rising flour. So for the single recipe, it would just be a 1/4 teaspoon-ish of salt to convert it to self-rising. Since I'm tripling my batch, I will be adding extra. And then for the baking powder, a single recipe is 2 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. And I'm going to be tripling this one as well. One of the things that made this recipe stand out the first time I made it is that they are very fluffy pancakes. And that's because the recipe calls for a little bit of baking soda as well. Original recipe is just a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm tripling that yet again. I already milled my buckwheat, so I just need to add the cup for cup flour to finish rounding this out. To help the pancakes brown a little bit, I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of sugar per batch. And those are all of my dry ingredients. So I'm going to just take a whisk here and get them all mixed together. And that is my self-rising flour and a little bit of a browning agent. So now that I have my dry ingredients mixed and set aside, I need to get my wet ingredients together. Before I started filming, I set aside 3 cups of milk with a little bit of vinegar in them, as I didn't have buttermilk on hand like the original recipe calls for. But the vinegar trick works great in this recipe, so you don't have to worry about having buttermilk on hand. I also need some melted butter, so it'll be 2 tablespoons for a single recipe. And I need to get my 6 tablespoons of melting over here on the stove for my triple batch. So my butter is melted, my milk has curdled with the vinegar for a few minutes. So I'm going to start by adding an egg for each of the batches that I'm making today. and the milk, and then I will be mixing in the butter as it has a chance to cool down for a couple minutes and stirring it all in to the pancake mix. So one of the additional ingredients that I'm going to be adding into this batch is chocolate chips. I am a chocoholic. Farmer Nathan likes chocolate as well, so I'm going to be making some chocolate chip pancakes for freezing. But if you wanted to mix in other fruit like blueberries or nuts or anything like that into your pancakes, this would be the time to stir it in. So quick note while my griddle heats up. As you saw me stir, you probably noticed that it is thicker than you're probably used to pancake batter being. Pancake batter is usually very runny, and this recipe is on the thicker side. So it's not quite as easy to pour with a ladle as if that's what you've been doing in the past. I like using a 1/4 cup measuring cup to make decent sized pancakes, like about that size that you'll see me make in a few minutes. But a 1/4 cup usually is a pretty good sized pancake for this particular batter. Well, thank you for joining me in the farmhouse kitchen this morning as I made a triple batch of pancakes. I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as we do, whether you're gluten-free or not. If you're looking for some more gluten-free recipe inspiration, I'll link to a few on our blog down below, as well as a recipe for some spiced sourdough cookies above that are perfect for this upcoming fall season. And with that, I'll catch you next time.